Good morning, everybody. I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today. My name is Bagshaw. I'm from the University of South Australia, and I'm going to be talking about elder mediation. I'm going to share my screen. Should take only a minute. And okay. I'm going to be talking about positioning older adults in the centre in an ageist society. But first of all, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and future. I'm a member of the Strategy to Safeguard the Rights of Older South Australians Steering Committee. I have been since about 2007. And when I wrote the first state plan for the prevention of abuse of older South Australians with my colleagues from the university. I really like this diagram because it actually focuses on the rights of older people. And in South Australia, that has been our focus. And if you can see in this diagram, I just mentioned some of the things that older people deserve: to be respected, their diversity to be valued, to be celebrated, to be empowered, to have positive self-esteem, to be treated with dignity and respect, free from harm and mistreatment, and have the autonomy to choose and make their own decisions, particularly decisions that affect them. Ageism, unfortunately, is rife in Australia and most Western countries. It was a term coined in 1969 by Robert Butler, and it's a combination of three elements: prejudicial attitudes towards older people, old age itself, and the ageing process. We're all ageing from the time we're born, I might point out. It covers discriminatory practices against older people and institutional practices and policies that perpetuate stereotypes about older people, which we've seen a lot through the COVID pandemic. Ageism, adults in Australia can encounter discrimination in differing circumstances in their families, and it often underpins elder abuse in their communities and community activities, gaining and maintaining employment, and in particular in healthcare, the way things are communicated, the language that is used, how care is managed, how treatment is given, and choices and priorities around treatment, and of course mistreatment, which we've been made aware of, unfortunately, in the last decade or so. Some perceive old age as a process of degeneration and lack of productivity. These attitudes lead to social exclusion, isolation, mental health issues, and the marginalisation of older adults. Of course, I must declare I come into that category. Older adults are an extremely heterogeneous group. They differ in life experiences, cultural backgrounds, genetics, and health histories. And the process of ageing itself is highly diverse and context dependent. Innumerable older people defy the image of being frail and helpless, and I'm one of those people. Countless older adults make valuable and essential contributions to society. But unfortunately, negative age stereotypes are not only internalized by people of all ages, but are often internalized by older people themselves. Ageism, racism, and the stigma attached to old age allows older people from many cultures in Australia to be marginalised from society itself and from decision-making processes, particularly decision-making processes that affect them. They're often prevented from wielding any influence over health or their health care and service delivery. And they're vulnerable to abuse, whether it be from family members with immediate or intergenerational and systemic abuse. When we look at disempowerment and aged care, we need to remember that active management and controlling of one's living and social setting is an essential basis for physical and psychological well-being. And disempowerment is closely connected to the denial of human rights, closely connected, of course, to the loss of autonomy and self-determination. I'm a member of the Elder Mediation International Network, a board member, and also an AMIN elder mediator, trained elder mediator at an advanced level. And the AMIN definition I like. It says that elder mediation is a focused, preventative, respectful process, usually multi-party, multi-issue, and intergenerational. It doesn't have to be about disputes. It can also be about planning for the future for older people and a range of other things. The mediator facilitates discussions focusing on present strengths and assists participants in addressing their stated wishes and concerns, including the older person themselves. This form of mediation can include many people related to the older person and or the issues being discussed. It's a strengths-oriented and person-centered approach, which focuses on positive images of aging, older person's strengths and strengths in the people in the older person's network, potential, desires, as well as needs, concerns, and risk factors. It focuses on empowering the people involved, including the older person, promoting resilience, healing, and wholeness, and encourages dialogue and collaboration. It differs from other forms of mediation in many different ways. It normally involves large and more varied numbers of participants, where possible, the older person, where necessary, a support person or advocate for the older person, members of their immediate or extended family, friends, neighbours, and or significant others concerned with their care, such as paid or unpaid carers, nursing home or hospital staff, GPs, social workers, psychologists, etc. Typical age-related issues for mediation include discussions or disputes over health and medical care, progressive dementias, concerns about progressive dementias and what that may mean for the care of the older person, and other memory impairments, discussions or disputes over caregiving, financial planning and management as a person grows older, guardianship issues, housing, living arrangement issues, intergenerational relationship issues such as grandparenting, and more complicated issues such as new marriages and step-relative issues, religious issues, family business issues such as where families are on farms and you have people of different generations working on those farms. Issues around driving are often issues that come for elder mediation, and other safety issues, including abuse and, of course, self-neglect, and legal issues such as issues around estates, inheritance, wills, advanced care directive, enduring powers, etc., and end-of-life planning and decision-making. The challenge for elder mediators is how can the process empower older people in an ageist society? Well, trained elder mediators are trained to have an empowerment focus, which includes person-centered approaches to decision-making, promotion of positive images of aging, focusing on strengths in individuals, in families, in the communities surrounding the older people and their environments, on potential and desires not only of the older person themselves, but of other important people surrounding the older person, significant others, promoting respect for older people's right to choose for themselves, their right to autonomy and independence, promoting opportunities for engagement, not only of the older person, but of family members who otherwise may have been disengaged in the care of their older person, the older person in the family, increasing options, increasing choices, bringing in and involving a broader social network where possible, building support, either from members of the family or others in the elders' network, and identifying and mobilising resources. Key questions for elder mediators at all times are when decisions are made which involve an older person who has or has not got capacity. Is their voice being heard directly or indirectly if the person lacks capacity? Are their rights, their safety, their needs, their interests and wishes understood and respected by all involved? Elder mediation offers a human rights perspective on decision-making, focusing on the dignity of risk. All people have a right to fail and make mistakes, and this right doesn't diminish with age or cognitive impairment. There's a need to balance our duty of care with the right of older people to make decisions about their own life that could expose them to potential harm. That moves me on to looking at a working definition of elder abuse. I like this one: a single or repeated act or failure to act, including threats, that results in harm or distress to an older person. These occur where there's an expectation of trust and/or where there is a power imbalance between the parties responsible and the older person. I like the mention of power imbalance, which is often missing from definitions of elder abuse. AVES has recently done an elder abuse prevalence study, and what they found, I think it's worth sharing, is that 1 in 6 older Australians reported experiencing abuse in the 12 months prior to being surveyed in 2020. Elder abuse can take the form of psychological abuse. Sorry, for some reason that moved. Psychological abuse, neglect, financial abuse, physical abuse, and sexual abuse. And perpetrators of abuse are often family members, more often than not, unfortunately, the adult sons and daughters of older people, but they can also be friends, neighbours, acquaintances, carers, etc. And also people with poor physical or psychological health and higher levels of social isolation are more likely to experience elder abuse. There's a need for special education and training for elder mediators because they often are working with vulnerable old adults in elder mediation sessions. And this has been emphasised in research. Trained elder mediators are trained to offer mediation as a preventative early intervention strategy where there's a risk of abuse or actual abuse has been identified, maybe by a family member, and people can be brought together to prevent ongoing abuse or to build support networks or supportive strategies to prevent abuse from occurring. Trained mediators can involve the social support networks of an older person who may be vulnerable to abuse, not only involve, but build those networks and strengthen those networks, and to encourage and build cohesion within those networks. They can provide opportunities for older people themselves to be empowered by the process to speak up about abuse that may be occurring, and can also provide a context and a process that enables the voice of the older person not only to be heard directly or indirectly, but also to be respected, and their interests, needs and rights also respected in any planning or decision-making that is happening. In addition, elder mediators can develop interdisciplinary understanding and collaborations with other professions. identify and address the ageist, gendered and cultural contexts in which abuse occurs, raise the awareness of the rights of older people, and model approaches and standards to ensure the safety, autonomy and dignity of older people, and importantly, provide age-sensitive, gender-sensitive and culture-sensitive service delivery. Trained elder mediators have the knowledge and skills of best practice and protocols in relation to elder law and age-related policies, most importantly, elder abuse and neglect, the effect of ageism not only on themselves, but also on others involved, on the aging process, what's involved in age-related issues and illnesses such as dementia, family and intergenerational dynamics, which sometimes can be complicated, particularly when there's more than one marriage, facilitative and more therapeutic forms of mediation, mediation with larger groups. They focus very much on culture, gender, and how that impacts on aging, the different values and attitudes and experiences of people from different cultural backgrounds, for example, how to meet with and prepare older people in terms of their participation, whether it be direct participation or indirect participation, how to screen for elder abuse, but also how to screen for capacity, determining who should participate, how, when, under what circumstances, how to facilitate the voice of the older person to be brought into the mediation room, whether the older person is present or not, how to involve support persons or advocates, when to involve them, how to involve them, how to develop collaborative networks, and how to refer to other relevant professionals or services. Elder mediation certification is offered by the Elder Mediation International Network. The certification process is one that was developed over time, and as a member of the board, I was able to take ideas from the Elder Mediation Australasian Network to the board, which had an impact on developing a two-tiered approach to certification. Current certification is recognised by AMEN certification and is recognised and supported by EMAN, the Australasian Network, and by the Resolution Institute and Relationships Australia. AMEN also has developed a code of ethics for elder mediators, which are really important, and also a companion volume which looks at safeguarding vulnerable adults and offers guidelines for elder mediators when working with vulnerable adults, including adults who may be vulnerable to elder abuse. Please contact me if you want more information, and please consult the Elder Mediation Australasian Network and the Elder Mediation International Network if you want more information. I've added references in my PowerPoints, so thank you very much. I'm now going to pass over to my colleagues who are going to talk about elder caring coordination, which is an approach that is used where families in too high a conflict to participate in mediation. So I look forward to working more with my colleagues in that area as well.